Hi there, traders. This is Brad Goodwin with the week ahead. All right, now there's a fair bit going on. Obviously, if you missed the news, Donald, a bit of an assassination attempt on him. There'll be lots of questions about who, why, where, and lots of stuff. Will it impact the US dollar? I don't think so, not at the moment anyway. It's not like he's running the US, right? Which obviously, if he was the president and did get assassinated, that would have a major geopolitical event. Now, the dollar, okay, some of the news wires are sort of saying, okay, there's sees safe haven gains. I don't really see it too much at the moment, and the sliding end stays on intervention watch. Now, we just have a look at the where these instruments are, right? We had the weaker US CPI numbers, right? So everything starts to go up from there, or down as far as the US dollar is concerned. Euro, sterling, Aussie, Kiwi against the dollar, all going up, albeit the Kiwi sort of dragging its feet. Probably why they call it the flightless bird, just doesn't want to fly. Now, the dollar, a little bit mixed here on dollar Swiss, but you see this massive move down here on the dollar yen. Now, I was sort of saying this last week, well, last time I was on air, actually, basically that, the US numbers are really, one more weaker US CPI number really pushes the Fed towards a sort of cutting bias, sooner than later. That's what it is. So you can actually sometimes, I know you'd expect the BOJ to be involved here, but if there's a big liquidation of US dollar longs, long-term positions by some of the big US fund managers, it can have the same impact, right? As soon as you start to see it move, liquidity disappears and then it starts to go very quickly, right? And then they sort of wait to see what happens. And then it bounces super aggressively. So yet to be seen whether that's the BOJ or not. I would think it's a great time for the BOJ to be getting involved. Maybe wait for one more data weak US number and you'll really start to see the thing fall. Now, dollar CAD, well, oil back at 82 bucks, sort of bringing dollar CAD back up a little bit off the floor from 136 the figure. And as I said, euro, sterling, Aussie, and Kiwi, well, if I go out a bit on the Kiwi chart there, it will look like it's going up, but not that much. Now, the key to sort of trading this, right, we're seeing a sort of a shift in the US dollar sentiment. Now, coming over to the daily charts, this sort of upward sort of trend channel that the dollar index has been in for some time has broken down. The euro is, man, it wants to go up, right? But it just hasn't got the drive at the moment. Maybe because of all the geopolitical stuff around France, elections, etc. But it is dragging its feet, whereas sterling, right, if I get the pen right, and Aussie charging topside, Kiwi, well, it's just sitting tight. And you've got a bit of a breakdown here in dollar CAD. Still trending higher is dollar yen, but we do have some levels to work with as we go. And the same with dollar Swiss. So there's quite a few pairs here, right? Dollar Swiss, I'll just circle the headings. Dollar yen, well, Kiwi hasn't moved yet, nor has the euro, right? So we've got things to focus on. And what we're looking for are trending markets because we haven't had trending markets for some time. Now, where did all this start? Now, before we go into next week's data, the core CPI numbers, okay, on the bottom end of the spectrum there. But the real CPI numbers that the Fed are looking at, weaker than the forecast, right? So and on the sort of lower end of expectations, this puts the cat amongst the pigeons. Even lower jobless claims, which is a little bit of a positive for the dollar, didn't really touch the sides come Thursday. You come into Friday's PPI numbers and they were a little bit stronger. Maybe that took a little bit of the shine off the CPI numbers, but you know what? The damage was done and the US dollar is sliding. And I can tell you that because if we have a look at the interest rate probabilities, right? You look at the Fed, there's no change expected this month. But if I drill into the Fed, and I'm going to be covering a session on this so you can actually understand exactly what to do here or how to read and interpret the interest rate probabilities, right? What we've done in the past is we've looked at, you're trying to collate all the economic data and put that into a file, try and check out what's happening on the forward interest rates. And then, you work out on fair balance, is the dollar going up or down? And what is the likelihood of an interest rate hike or cut or no change? And as you can see here, the Fed, 31st of July, no change, 95.5%. But then the month after, 92.3%. Now, this is going to be important for trading US numbers, right? So you know exactly which side of the market is the raw nerve, right? If you're not really having a good look at all the US numbers, you can check the interest rate probabilities and that will guide you through that. Okay, so just before I forget, I will be covering that for our members tomorrow. Whoops, just get that back up. How to interpret and trade central bank interest rate probabilities. I will be recording that, so you will have access to that as well. Now, let's just get into this because we've got a sort of week ahead with some interesting things coming out. Now, we've just had some Chinese numbers out, a little bit mixed. Retail sales, much lower. Industrial production higher. You know what? I was just looking at that going, trading Chinese numbers on a Monday, right? After, someone's had a crack at the Donald, just doesn't make sense. So really coming back to what we can see. Now, Tuesday, we do have the Canadian inflation numbers. Unfortunately, I'll be attending my grandmother's funeral, so I won't be able to cover that, nor will I be able to cover the UK inflation numbers. But what we can see, right, from these two events, right, that are coming up, now we're seeing the markets jump around a little bit more actively on the inflation numbers. So just be aware of that if you are trading. Now, if you're in the Discord, I have posted a bit of information here around the UK and the Bank of England, right? So Bank of England, interest rate probabilities, right? It's a line ball decision, right? So when we look at the inflation numbers, weaker inflation numbers will push the Fed towards a potential cutting situation. So we'll be watching these interest rate probabilities after the number drops, especially if it's weaker. If we get stronger inflation numbers, well, it's going to push the market towards probably a no change. But it's a line ball decision at the moment, and that's going to make that interest rate decision from the Bank of England very active next week. But we can trade the numbers around this, right? And the Bank of Canada, okay, the probability here, well, at the moment, it's a 77.4% chance of a cut on the 24th of July, right? So weaker inflation numbers will pretty much make that a certainty. Stronger numbers, we might see the CAD correct a bit because it'll go a bit more towards the no change. But you know what? I think in all sort of weighing everything up, the Bank of Canada does look ready to cut, but they're just looking for that last nail in the coffin and the last reason to do it. So just be aware of that. So as we come into Monday's trading here, or Tuesday, we do have, so you'll be focusing on the Canadian inflation numbers, of course, ZEW economic sentiment numbers. Well, once again, the euro has been dragging its feet, but you know what? There's weirder things have happened. If we did get some surprise stronger numbers, which the consensus is for much weaker numbers, you know what? This could be the one thing that's holding it back. Stronger numbers, you see euro start to climb to the top side, but we'll see how that plays out. Now, to me, outside of those inflation numbers, US retail sales, right? It's coming out on Tuesday. It's a good number. It's got connections to employment, inflation, everything else. I'd say this is probably one of the key numbers for the week. And what we're looking for are weaker numbers, which fits in, and that's what the consensus is, which fits in with that whole weaker picture we've got from last week's CPI. So sometimes the devil is in the detail. Maybe you don't chase the inflation numbers, right? But the US retail sales comes out the same time as the Canadian CPI. That could be the one to be really trading some of the major pairs. Wednesday, UK inflation numbers. As I said, it's a line ball decision around the interest rate decision at the moment. So this is an important number. It will go up or down basically because it's a 50-50 line ball decision on the Bank of England's interest rate decision next week. So this number here, stronger number, it goes up, weaker number, it goes down. It's one of those ones which you want to be trading. Now, as I say that, right, if you're thinking of going in with pending orders, as I said, the markets have been, liquidity's been disappearing a bit around these numbers. So just take it easy, work out what side of the market Usually it's the side with the best technical setup. But where's the trend? That's the one you're looking for. Like sterling is going up. So to me, even though weaker numbers are probably on the cards, a stronger number would be a nicer trade to the top side. Then you come into like Wednesday, you've got some housing numbers, building permits. Yeah, like they're like a third tier at best, right? Industrial production numbers is something I'd probably look at a little bit closer. Once again, we are looking for the US numbers to connect up, and they have been of late. Now, Thursday, Aussie employment numbers. Okay, bank, RBA, like this is the key to the whole. And I'll keep coming back to this interest rate perspective. The RBA, they're the one central bank that are sort of almost like on a hiking watch at this point, right? So let's just have a look here at the RBA. If you're taking a look down here, no change in August, no change in September, right? And like no change pretty much until next year, right? So the numbers here are really important for the Aussie because it tells us a lot about what's going on. Stronger numbers here, and I think the market's going to we're going to see some weak numbers here very quickly, and that'll change that interest rate probability from the RBA. The full-time employment at this stage, I mean, they're looking for a weaker number, but you know what? Any variance here, stronger, well, that will go from no change to a potential hike, right? And that's really going to get the Aussie dollar going topside, and that's where the trend is. So once again, you can sort of trade these numbers around what comes out, this stronger or weaker. But if you're going with the trend, it's an easier trade, right? Because you can afford to get the wrong level and it's still going up. So you know what? You have less trouble. Trying to trade against the trend, how far is it going to push back? All these sorts of things. They're the questions that come up. So RBA, RBA interest rate decision. They'll be watching the employment numbers very closely. I will be covering I'll be back for the unemployment numbers out of the UK on Thursday, right? Now, these numbers are, as I said, the Bank of England, it's a line ball decision at the moment. The CPI numbers Wednesday will be a key component to that. The second part is the unemployment numbers. So I'll be back online there. So I will be running a live session on that. What usually would be a big decision is the ECB interest rate decision. No change expected, right? So you know what? It's next month. That's going to be a bit of a really big opportunity and a major focus for traders. What will be more important is listening to what Christine Lagarde's got to say at the press conference, right? That's the event, not the interest rate decision. And then you come back into, come down to Friday's trading. We've got, people always ask me, what about these inflation numbers out of Japan? I'm like, there's no inflation in Japan, right? So don't worry about that. If anything, check out that Kiwi inflation rate. That's probably worth a crack. Once again, UK retail sales and followed up with Canadian retail sales later. These two, we should have some answers with regards sterling and Canada from their inflation numbers. You know, there's a fair chance they could come out as expected, and then it comes down to these numbers, right? So Friday, okay, retail sales. The best thing about these numbers, the worst thing is it's on a Friday, but the best thing is they're not violent and aggressive. They don't see liquidity draw out of the market. So these are numbers that can work nicely with the current trend, right? That's why I love these second tier numbers. You don't have the same dramas with liquidity around the release of these events. Now, don't forget, the whole trading structure, what we're looking for are trends to work with. And we haven't had good trends for quite some time. If we start to see the US dollar trending lower and the euro, I think the euro is a little bit of a question mark, but sterling, definitely, right? If we start to see, say, sterling, Aussie starting to trend higher, we have a side to focus on. All we need is the numbers to drop and the market keeps going. That's easy trading. At the moment, with some of these numbers or some of these instruments, we've seen discombobulation after the release of inflation numbers, etc., because the market's not working with the trend, right? We're getting closer to that, and that's what you really need to be focusing on, right? So as we start the week, we've got a risk-on profile here. US equity futures going up, Australasian futures going up. So same with the DAX, the FTSE, and well, funnily enough, we're seeing Euro, Sterling, Aussie, Kiwi sort of drifting down and the dollar up, right? So not that natural risk-on profile that you would usually probably be accustomed to. So just be aware of that. A little bit of discombobulation. The US Treasuries, well, if anything, they're lower than where they were when I last looked. So lower dollar looks like the way of it at the moment. Like, and don't get sort of put off, right? The dollar is rallying here at the moment, but it's, you get the Asia counter rally from Friday, right? So, and we'll just, and don't forget, we've got to factor in some of this news from the weekend, right? Obviously the Donald getting popped, and then you've got, what's going on with dollar yen. If I come back over the other news page, you're looking at, this whole safe haven bonds and like what's happening after the Trump assassination. To me, it's the media loves this, right? It's like storm in a teacup, but it'll become more apparent in a day or so. Once these numbers start to roll, the focus will go off Trump, it'll go off the BOJ, and we'll start to be looking for trading opportunities around the major events, right? So I'll be posting, some of the forecasts, some of the bits of information. As I said, I will be running a live session here on the UK employment numbers come Thursday. We are rolling out the new dashboard. There's a few tech things to get added to that before we sort of get going, but you will have access to this very shortly, and it will be updated live, right? At the moment, I've just put a bit of a mock-up there just to show you a little bit about what's going on, but that will become a very active area, and I'll be including a whole range of things, including interest rate probabilities from the central banks, some screeners that you can see, and most importantly, where the support and resistance levels are and how you can take advantage of those opportunities, right? And anyway, I'll tell you more about that as we get going. Right now, I just want to get you tuned up for the week and really focus in on, like Tuesday, the week starts early this week, right? Usually you'd sort of be looking at Wednesday, Thursday. You're looking at, really getting stuck in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, right? It's a very active week. Just be aware of those inflation numbers with the liquidity, right? We are seeing more reports of a bit of carnage around the time of the release, so stay out of trouble. All in all, good week. Hopefully there's no geopolitical events like Trump getting in the way of things, because we do have the dollar moving, and that's going to be give us some opportunities as we go forward. All right, guys, have a good one. All the best. Cheerio.